So I think that brings us to error resolution. We're going to demonstrate. It's pretty straightforward process, the resolution of a certification data discrepancy. And in that, I think we'll get a feel for the behavior. So we'll look at a SINF 0453, missing parent guardian highest education level code. And so the functionality is just the same as it is with certification errors. You click show, and you have a list of those students triggering a SINF 0453. I'm going to click a new tab so I could come back to this certification screen without much haste and go to demographics. And I'm going to open the record. And as I scroll down, I can see that the parent guardian highest education level code is missing. Now, using the error list, of course, I would go to the student information. I might filter for that specific error. And I'm going to examine the fields of validation and find out why the error is triggering. And here you can see the error description. It's a required field if the enrollment status is not 50. So none of this has changed. It's a pretty simple error, but you can see that you still use the same elements of the error list when you're resolving a CDD as you would an IVR or a certification error. So I think the biggest difference is typically we would be comparing a rejected record to the CALPADS ODS. This is very similar to a certification error because the data is already in CALPADS. We're just looking at the record as it exists. We can see the parent guardian education level code is missing. Because I'm using online maintenance, I may also have to populate other required fields if I add the parent guardian education level code. And of course, I'm just picking a random answer. You would want to consult your student information system. If you had several students submit a file correcting those similar data discrepancies, you do have the option of using online maintenance as I am demonstrating. But if there are any other fields that are required to post this record, you would expect to have to populate those fields as well. And so again, part of the post redesign is you don't see instant posting of the record. We'll wait a few minutes and confirm. And you can see that the parent error level has populated in the record, but you can also come to the DD screen, and I'm hoping that test is going to be fast. So as we go through with the rest of training, we'll try to come back here and update. What I'm expecting is to see an update of the date timestamp, which we were just discussing. I don't expect a revision to process as soon as the DDs, but we updated that record at about 11:34, 11:35, and I would expect right now the DDs have started. They're processing. They're not waiting like the revision where you need a period of inactivity. The DDs should be processing, or the CDDs should be processing, and so you should see the date time stamp reflected change before we conclude today. And so we'll come back to this momentarily. So that would lead us to the certification status screen, which we are at. And this is how you're going to track your DDs. And so it's kind of hard in a training, but your DDs will decrease. The counts here and the count are going to decrease just like they would for your certification errors. As you resolve data discrepancies, these counts will decrease. at the same rate as your data, as your certification errors, because you need a new revision for the change to be reflected on this screen. The only thing that's going to change is this date and timestamp. And so the value of the date and timestamp lets you know that if you're making changes, you're working furiously because you have several certification data discrepancies. You can see that your reports and the errors haven't changed based on the revision create date. You're going to make a comparison, and the date that's very important is when the CDDs are completed, because the CDDs are processed file by file. We have a range. Even in test, you can see that there was a 3-minute difference from when the record started processing for my LEA and when they were finished. So you would expect in production, you'll have a greater range of time. And so you want to compare this last date, the date and time which the CDDs were completed, to your revision create date. So if you have a CDD completed time of 11/13, and just for instance, this time was 11/10. This revision came before the last when my CDDs were completed. I will know that there are records that I have resolved, or there's the potential for records that I have resolved that are not reflected because my revision predates the time that my DDs were processed. That should also tell me that when I am done working, when I allow time for the extractor to pull my revision, I will have a new revision coming. If I have a revision completed time, or CDD completed time of 11/13, and a revision create date, let's say it's a whole day later, instead of 7/7, it's 7/8. I would then expect that all of the DDs that I resolved to be included in that revision for 2 reasons. One, the DD time of completion predates the revision create date. But we also know that revisions are only generating about once a day right now. And so that because it's a whole day later, that was enough time for the revision to capture those DDs. So I would expect my reports to be accurate and the counts of my DDs to be accurate, these counts here. And so you have to use your knowledge of CALPADS, how it's currently functioning, in addition to the information provided when you're resolving your CDDs. So I'm gonna try to refresh to see if we update. That's a little bit ambitious. Martha, I don't know if we have questions, because that's
a common question that people are asking is, you know, they have a large number of CDDs. Can they get a download of it? And we are working on that functionality. It's not available right now. It's not showing up on your certification submission error report. So we know that you guys would love to have that functionality. It's in the backlog for us to work on, but right now you can't get it. And I would say too that, you know, some of the CDDs that are in the really high number, there likely are known issues, right? We already explained in Flash 226 that there was 17. I think we've already added another 10 of CDDs that aren't triggering correctly. So if you are spotting some of those that are really large, or you look at a few of them and you think, well, these aren't right, then go and look for others that are of a smaller number, such that you can tackle and you don't need to have a download report to look at them.